where we are going to have a very special guest. This is in our series for Franchise Wisdom, where we interview successful franchisees that are actually making things happen. And for today, we have a very special guest. His name is Soumangue, and he is a multi-unit franchisee. But I'm going to let him tell you all about him and his business. And let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Soumangue. Welcome to Franchise Wisdom Session Show.
Hey Aisha, how's it going? Aloha.
Aloha. That's right. Because for those of you that are watching this, he's actually hailing from Hawaii.
That's right.
So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be jealous of you, the fact that you get to spend time in Hawaii. But you're not only spending time in Hawaii, you actually have a very special situation where you're commuting back and forth. But first of all, tell us about, and I want to go in the history because the topic for today's conversation is how people, men and women that were at first the sons and daughters of franchisees that then take over their parents' enterprise and succeed with that. Because I know that there's, especially right now in the United States, there's a lot of franchisees retiring since really the peak of the franchise scaling, times where, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so right now, a lot of franchisees are kind of aging out and saying, okay, we're done with this. And they're looking first at their family members, children, to take over the business. And so we wanted to, we know Soumangue very well. And so we wanted to share a story of one of those situations that end up becoming very successful. It was a very successful process for them. And learning, to see what other people can learn from that, because I know lots of people are in that situation. So before we start that, Soumangue, can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, how did your parents become franchisees? Do you know that story?
Yeah, I do. It actually happened about 30, almost 35 years ago. Both of my parents are actually immigrants, so I'm first generation American. So they've always wanted to achieve the American dream and ownership of a business or a home or, something that most immigrants want to achieve when they come to this country. And luckily my father had the foresight to get involved with a franchise called Subway, which I think majority of your viewers probably know Subway is. Back in 19, I think 85 or 86 or so, or around that time. And it was actually an ad in Success magazine. And he was a flight attendant for Pan American Airlines back in the day. And Pan Am was going through that tumultuous bankruptcy where they ended up switching over to United. At that, it really scared my mom and dad that there's really no job security. So really ownership, starting some type of business was the way to go. And franchising really appealed to my mom and dad because it was a turnkey operation. You don't have to come up with a brand, you get all the support. And then he reached out and talked to Fred DeLuca because at the time, Subway in the 80s, I think, was less than 2,000 Subways at the time. And it was a very intimate time during those early 80s. I remember as a little kid going to the conventions, meeting Fred and all the other franchisees. It was almost like a picnic style. And now if you go fast forward, I just went to the recent convention back in Las Vegas in July, and it's like 10,000 franchisees, but we're like 35,000 worldwide. It's unreal what Subway has done over the last 30 plus years. But yeah, so my parents, started humble beginnings, started in our hometown of Hawaii in Mililani, opened up, they were the first franchisee and opened up the third store because the previous folks was a development agent and they had to wait until things were built. But they were the first franchisee here in the state of Hawaii, which is really cool. A lot of people thought they were crazy. Franchising was still kind of new. We had the big McDonald's, Burger King, but Subway's new, and people are like, "Why should I go to a store to buy a loaf of bread? I mean, and sandwich when I could just go to a local grocery to make my own sandwiches." They did that and started building. At one point, I think they had about 12 stores or so. My parents also expanded internationally to China and opened up four Subways out there. Eventually sold that off. And then when it came close to retirement around the COVID years, um, they were at seven stores. At that moment, my parents, like you mentioned earlier, they're part of that generation that's aging out of the system. and there's a lot of, it's not only in Subway, but a lot of other brands. First offered it to the kids, myself and my two sisters.
Okay, hold on, but let's go. Don't get too far ahead because I want to talk about that.
Sure, go right ahead.
First, I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
come, find out how your parents got into franchising
yeah.
because we are going to definitely get into the details of how
Okay,
that
sure.
handoff happened. So let's go back a little bit again in history. And your parents are now franchisees. They opened the first
Yep.
unit, second unit, third unit. At some point in time, you were born. And what was your involvement during those years as the son of a franchise owner in the actual organization?
Yeah, so I mean, the first franchisee, I was around 6 years old when they first opened their first store. So my involvement was just cleaning. I would take the dustpan, sweep, and I would do my homework, or after school, we would be in the stores. I mean, I can remember most of my childhood being around a lot of Subways, following my mom and dad because, it was busy growing multiple stores. And my parents, we didn't mind it too. My sisters and I, my oldest one was actually working in the store as an employee, but my younger sister and I, we would just have fun, just doing setups and whatever we could do as a little kid. Of course, we didn't violate any child labor laws there, but but it was fun. It was a lot of fun growing up, participating in like local outreach. We would pass out flyers, and who could say no to little kids passing out flyers or cookies or anything like that. So yeah, even throughout high school too, I actually became like a shift lead and worked in the stores, and that was all fun. And then I went off to college and actually said goodbye to the family business for some point.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that even though you did grow up in that environment, you did not stay made that a career. You literally just did that. I guess that was your high school job, right? Like all the kids
That's
get their
correct.
high school job. You were
Yeah.
working in the units for your parents, and then you
Yeah.
were okay. Then you decided to go to college
Hmm.
and start a different career path. So you didn't make this a career. So tell us about why do you decide not to make that a career path? Maybe that wasn't even a thought, and you went off
Yeah.
to college. And what did you study, and what did you become? What did you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, it never. My passion was to be a pilot, and one day, airline pilot. So, kind of took up the family business in a different way. They were both. It's interesting. Like my parents are still working full time in the airlines while building their subways. They had a part time and a full time. They were never full time. It literally took them maybe 20 years after they fully retired, and then the last 15 years they've actually been retired.
I did
Did
not
not retire, but
realize
full.
that. So they were
Yes.
still have full-time job while they were running their
Yep.
franchises.
Yep. They work for United Airlines as flight attendants, both of them, and we're building the franchise units at the same time. Pretty impressive. And then 2001 is basically when they both kind of started to fully retire from the airlines, and then kind of went 100% full time in the business. So yeah, it's interesting. Really, hats off to them. And it's typical whatever immigrant story here. They just work hard. They're workaholics. But yeah, I didn't see it initially that wasn't my plan of my career. I wanted to be a pilot. I decided to join the military. I went to the Coast Guard Academy as a route to become a pilot. Didn't we didn't have flight school right after the back, so I was on a ship for about 2.5 years, assigned to a ship, and then finally got into flight school and flew C-130s for the Coast Guard, doing search and rescue, drug interdiction missions, things of that nature. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And then
So,
kids
so
came
you,
into
so
the
you did
picture.
make your dream come true of becoming
I did.
a pilot. Wow. So that shows a lot about your focus and determination. You set objectives and goals, and you work
Mhm.
hard for it, and until you make it happen, which makes sense to me because of everything I do know about you and all the things you have accomplished. So how wonderful is that? I'm so happy for you. And by the way, a side note, my brother is a pilot. I don't know if
Oh,
you know that.
I did not know that. Did
Yeah,
not
he
know that.
works
Yeah.
for Emirates Airlines right now. He's a
Oh, okay.
captain. Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful cap. That's an awesome company.
yeah, yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, keep telling me about your story though.
Yeah, I was in the Coast Guard for about 10 or 11 years. And my kids came in the picture, and my wife and I decided we wanted to kind of settle down. So I said goodbye to the Coast Guard, and it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it, and actually went into banking. So I worked at one of the top banks in the country, Citizens Bank's a regional bank in the Northeast, and became an auditor, and then eventually shifted into the business banking sector, which I love, and just working with entrepreneurs. And that's kind of where my entrepreneur bug hit me, and my memories of working in a family business. And actually, my customers are all family. A lot of them were family owned and operated, and revenues up to from 500,000 to about 25 million. So it was fun just working and the insights of all the different sectors and things. And I did have a lot of franchise customers, and those were always my favorites because I had, an understanding. Of course, they loved me because of my background. And when I was going through my MBA program, that's where I was like, I really want to, start something. I didn't know what it was going to be. Maybe I was going to do something on my own. And COVID hit, and then that's kind of how opportunity came. And my parents said, "Hey, we're going to sell the business. Do you guys want to buy it?" And that's how we kind of started to get into. But I could talk a little bit more about that. I know you got
yeah. Something that I love about that is that they didn't say, "Hey, here are the keys, take it over." They
No,
say, "You know
no,
what? We're going
absolutely
to
not.
sell the business. Would you want to buy it?" Which I think it's great because
Yes.
a lot of franchisees, I believe, make the mistake of not doing that selling of the business and making their children kind of financially responsible,
Yep.
and understand that they're on the hooks for it, because there's something to be said about things costing you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things. And I assume that as you were working in the business and learning about making your dollars, I'm sure they're all paying you for the work that you did. You understood the value of that. And a lot of times I think that is something that's critical for really any children of entrepreneurs, of people that have a business, to have the kids understand the value of the business, the value of hard work, and then things don't come free. Because otherwise, if it's just easy like that, and they don't have any stake in the game, the possibilities of them keeping it, there's history and there's case studies that more than likely that next generation will lose it all. And so I love the fact that your parents say, what, we're going to retire, but we're going to sell the business. Do you want to buy it? And so was that a surprise that it came to you for that, or do you already saw it coming, or something you talked about growing up, or was it a surprise?
Yeah, we talked about it here and there. We just didn't know if they were really serious, right? So, first time, the startup founders, right? It's their baby, for 35 years, they raised this amazing company and, organization that they kind of put together using the franchise model. And, it's hard to give it up. So we were never sure, like, okay, is this for real? This time we're really going to sell? Because there were back and forths here and there many years prior to the actual sale. But it was real. I mean, COVID, it was a it was a signal for them to, like, all right, time to get out.
And they
probably
said, okay, we're done. This is, we've done our deal.
Right.
We worked all the time. I think it's time for us to really enjoy our life. Because I think if something that COVID taught us was, you just never know. You just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we need to be able to look at our lives every day and say, you know what, this is the life I wanted to live. And so they were probably, ready to then pass on the baton and enjoy their lives, So I think that's actually a very, very good thing. Even though it took a little while for them to separate, but tell me about the process, what started the conversation and starting to decide, okay, here's how we do it. How do you manage the process in a way that was fair and it was honest and it was relationship building? Because something like that could hurt the relationships, with the family. And that's one of the things that when this is not done properly, I've seen it so many times, Soumangue, where families break, they get angry, and the legacy that the parents worked so hard to build end up being hurt at the end because of business and money and things like that. So how do you started the conversation? How do you structure? Who helped you kind of, to make sure that it was done right, it was fair, and kept the family intact?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aisha. So for families and for anyone that's watching this, especially the founders, right, of the company, I think it's always great to have a third party involved where there's no bias, and everybody can have honest conversations. So there's lots of companies out there, consulting companies, that help and assist with family transitions and things of this nature, especially when it comes to business and things of that nature. So we definitely worked with a firm that, you know, specialize in family planning and transitional and legacy and things of that nature. And they were great. I mean, they got to ask, you know, my siblings and I, you know, what are our thoughts just before, you know, is this really something that we all want to do? Can we really work together? You know, do we have the same goals aligned? And, you know, through that whole process it was great because we got to be fully honest, kind of have that kitchen table talk, right? Yeah, this is what's gonna happen. And I'm not saying that we're perfect. We're still learning our roles because, you know, it's one thing to say it before you take over, and then when you take over, it's like you're wearing like multiple hats, and that's not what we agreed upon, but it is what it is, right? When you're running a business. And then of course they also work with the parents, right? And just kind of figuring out what they want financially, you know, does this make sense? They look at the company, they help with the valuation, they help with the negotiation, and it really takes the pressure amongst between the parents. Now, don't get it twisted. There's still back and forth negotiations between our parents and I, and my two sisters, but it came to a nice agreement. It did take a while, and then eventually we settled on, you know, a good, you know, starting point where we could go, and we executed the transition. So.
You know, and that's a good point because for you, it was not just you, it's you and your two sisters.
Correct.
So there's an additional complexity. And the reality is that for most franchisees, that is the case. There are multiple siblings in the family, and then trying to decide who to sell it to or who to even wants it. Because sometimes nobody wants it, right? And
Right.
so that's what I love about your parents, that they say, look, we are going to sell. Now, any of you interested in buying it? And if nobody's interested, well, then that's okay. Then we're going to sell, right? And then we have our legacy, and that's what we use, you know, for our happy retirement. But having the ability to offer it to the children that, you know, that want, and then the one that wants to buy it, then they actually buy it, and so forth, so on. And but in your case, all three of you wanted to be involved. Why they all three of you want to be involved? I'm curious about that, because obviously it could have been just you being in the finance world and understanding access to capital and management and all the business experience, but and of course your sisters have been involved in the business growing up, but this is a whole other step, owning,
Right.
you know. So why did all three of you were interested?
I think it's the legacy aspect. You know, we know our parents worked hard to build something phenomenal that kind of, you know, enhanced our lifestyle growing up. And we recognize also throughout that time that that we could probably run it in a different way to grow the business in a way. And I think my parents, if they had the youth and energy, they'll probably take advantage of all the cool things that are out here to really expand your business even further and manage it more successfully. Um, I decided to go in business with my sisters because both of them have a significant amount of operational experience. My oldest sister in college was practically the district manager for my parents' 7 stores at the time, or 8, whatever it was. So she had some experience, and she actually ended up in the family business in the other way, going into airlines, working for as a flight attendant as well. But my youngest sister, who I think is the queen and the gem and the secret weapon we have, after college, she came back and worked in the family business and was a director of operations, and almost had about 15, 20 plus years of operational experience. So combined with all three of us, we all bring our own skill sets, our backgrounds and experiences that I knew we could probably make this happen and actually take it to another level. So I knew if I couldn't get them on board and they didn't want to work with us, I was not going to do this deal, because we just can't. It's just hard to manage just the business alone. But I know, love, and trust them so much that they will have the best interest, because we're all invested and we got skin in the game, and it's family. You know, we're building for the next legacy, the next generation. And like you brought up earlier, you know, even when I was a banker, second generation, they do tend to lose it, but it's the third generation that really, the the statistics just show it's even worse when businesses transition to the next generation, to the third generation. So hopefully we don't be a statistics, we'd be a statistic in a better way where it does transfer. And if the third generation doesn't want to take over, we'll have a backup plan to do something for them.
Yeah. And that is why I wanted to interview you and share this information with our audience, because um, you are a success story. You are an example of how to do it the right way, so that the next generation can not only, do well, but thrive, right? And so,
Yes.
and we're going to get to the thrive part, but is there anything in particular that you could share with, with the people that are watching this or listening to this? What do you learn from the process? Because obviously going into the process of purchasing your family's business, you had to assume some sort of expectations or thoughts, because you've been in banking. I assume you've been seen or participated in merger and acquisitions.
Yep.
So now that whole process is done, the signatures are done, and you are officially over, what have you learned about the process that you would maybe give some tips to the people that are going to be going in the process soon?
Yeah, that's a great. Well, first, I mean, before we even took over, we had to get educated again on franchise owner because we were never a franchisee. And even though we knew the brand and Subway, what's in our DNA, technically, we ate a lot of sandwiches over the years. We didn't know truly how to really run a franchisee. And actually, you came in the picture early before we even made any true acquisitions. And we kind of did your commander course, and that was really helpful because we could align some of the policies and operational strategy documents that we had to kind of align it to what you have as a management manual, which I think is crucial to have. I mean, it's your standard operating procedure to run and operate a store. And in the military, that's I love that stuff, right? In banking, there's procedures and things, and you have order. There's no chaos. Not to say that we're not there yet, but it's a work in progress. It's a living document. So getting that was really helpful, just to say, okay, this is the things we need to make sure we can run successful businesses. We kind of are very familiar with a lot of the stuff that you have actually shared in your curriculum. So that was very helpful. So that's what I want folks to educate themselves about the process of really operating. Most brands, they'll give you the brand operation aspects and the marketing, but they're not going to give you the operational aspects of the business. And that's a big piece that a lot of franchisees and entrepreneurs miss out. And if you don't have that understanding of what you're going to get involved with, you're absolutely going to struggle. Not so much fail, but why fail? Why don't you get the education first? Educate yourselves before you even get started, and then it's going to be a much more successful transition from the 9 to 5 to an entrepreneurial experience, which is totally different. So
you know what? That is what a great point. You're right, because as a son or daughter of a franchisee that grew up in that business and has been, being in the operations side, being mostly an employee, and seeing that perspective, just because you are the son or daughter of a franchisee, it does not mean that you've been exposed to the management side of the business. You are exposed to the brand systems, the product, the service, the image, maybe even the marketing procedures of the brand. But behind the doors in the office, or maybe in your dining room, right, your parents are doing the accounting and the hiring of the employees, and the like I said, staffing and turnover and promotions and finding salaries and pricing and reading profit and loss statement, and all the business management side that the brand does not provide. As an employee, as a son of a business, usually parents don't sit down. Hey, let me show you the profit and loss statement, and let me show you how we make the financial decisions, and how we lead our people, and how we decide how much we pay them. You're right. The sons and daughters don't have that perspective. They think that because they worked in the business, they know everything about it, and then they find that that shock. And yeah, you were very different from a lot of people that came to us, to our program, and you got educated about what it is like to be a franchise owner and what it takes to be successful. And that's something that always impressed me about you, that you and your sisters were proactive in getting educated, so that when it was time to take over, you would do it not just as well as your parents, but you actually were determined to do it better than your parents. So that was really great. So definitely that is something that it's a great tip for it.
And yeah, I would say the other team is surround yourself with a good team. You definitely want a good accountant, bookkeeping team, a good admin team. If you're buying, some folks might be just buying one store. You probably won't need it right off the back. But if you're buying for those of or looking to acquire their first franchisee, like a 4 unit deal, you definitely going to need some type of admin assistance to help you out with that. And it could be virtual, it could be somebody in person. So it's whatever that kind of works best for you. Legal teams as well to help with the due diligence of the acquisitions that you're going to buy, insurance. I mean, you name it. It's just finding the payroll companies, doing all that. What's the best company, and then also do their vision and mission align with what your mission and vision align? Do they see an opportunity to grow with? And all of our vendors are all invested in us, and we know their names, we know the reps for all these firms that we work with, and we want to know, they're going to grow with us and help us achieve our goals. And I strongly recommend is really finding a good team to work with.
I love that. Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that also the things that drove you and your sisters to acquire the business was not just to acquire that business, because that 7-unit multi-unit franchise enterprise was great, and it sustained and supported the family and gave them and you guys the financial stability to be able to do well and pay for college and vacations and all those things. But if you're going to divide it into 3 families, that's not enough. And that was not your goal. Your goal really, okay, we're taking over an enterprise, but let's us build an empire. So I assume that's one of the motivators for you to buy the business. Tell me about the motivators and what is it that you are looking to build and create with your sisters?
That's great. No, that's a great question. So I mean, growing up, when we go to conventions, we met a lot of strong multi-unit operators. Some folks that had, 10, 50, 200, 150. And I always wonder, why couldn't our family do that? Same questions were on the minds of my 2 sisters as well. And that's why, like I said, I want to come back. And I know Aisha didn't pay me to say all this, but your material was very helpful because it gives the blueprint and how, to really be successful in one store, then not one store, then 4, 5, 6 stores, how you transition to multi-unit leadership aspect of it. So it's definitely doable. We're in that growing pains right now. It's not easy. It's definitely acquiring units, especially if they have different owners that don't operate the same way we do. It's a lot, changing the culture, transitioning folks out, bringing in new leaders, and having everybody beat to one drum, right? It's not easy, but we were open to the challenge. And we decided to go the expansion route and acquisition route rather than development route. So we went from 7 in less than 1 year. We went from 7 to 17 stores. We more than doubled our units of operations and, of course, people. And it's been interesting. I would say it's been great. I learned a lot. We've learned a ton. We made a lot of mistakes. We still continue to make mistakes, but we learn from them and we try not to do it over again. But it's just made us stronger because now we know when we go in to buy additional units, the Subway brand, we know exactly what we're looking for. We can definitely evaluate businesses ourselves without any third-party assistance. We know what to look for, because you make your money when you buy a restaurant, just like in real estate. And you want to get it at a certain multiple, which is basically of profits or sales, and it depends on how you do it. And you just got to get to that point where it makes sense for you financially. And then what can you do with that opportunity to increase the valuation of that unit? Because, we don't know where we're going to end up. Are we going to do this for 7, 10, 15 years? But we have a valuation in mind that if we can hit a certain goal, we would position ourselves for a sale, but we have a lot of time. So it's going to take at least a 7 to 10 year goal where we want to reach at. And one of the great thing about this, Aisha, too, is that now we're building true wealth, right? It's we're going to take the proceeds and really continue to enhance the legacy that, you know, our parents kind of laid the foundation for, to not only look at Subway, but invest in other, you know, vehicles such as real estate or other businesses and things of that nature. So, you know, the franchise model is a really great starter, I would say, for a lot of folks that are entrepreneurs, because it's kind of, you have a routine, you have SOP, and I think it's really great rather than doing a startup. But at the end of the day, it's just, you know, just execute on the daily things that work, manage a couple metrics and that are very important to your business, and just, you know, get educated along the way and surround yourself with amazing team members to help you grow the business.
I love, look at all those best practices that you're giving the people that are listening to this, and to learn from you and your experience. That's fabulous. And as you're building now, so you have focused, you and your sister have focused on acquisitions. And while your initial base of 7 units is based out of Hawaii, you have not shied from going multi-state, even though any state from Hawaii is far, far away. But
Right.
the fact that you have decided to do that, having sisters, you know, that are flexible and can live in other places, has absolutely helped for that. So, and, you know, of course, Subway, like many other franchise organizations today, are very friendly to the multi-unit model. They want,
most definitely. Yes.
yeah, right. When you agree, I mean, I'm sure you did you see
What-
that before you acquired, or did you notice how
Yeah,
passionate they were about it afterwards?
yeah, we seen it before we acquired, not only for Subway, and Subway, I think, really is working with a lot of multi-unit operators, because there is a lot of folks in the brand aging out, a tremendous amount. You know, Subway's an older brand, but you know, if we went to the multi-unit conference back in Las Vegas with you, it was a lot of fun. But they love multi-unit operators, right? Because we're not buying one, we're buying at a minimum 3 or 5, and then, you know, who knows? And it's just easier for a brand to work with one person versus 5 people, right? It's just a lot easier for the brand. And, you know, a lot of them are experienced operators. So yeah, Subway was really pleased and happy. They love seeing legacy transitions happen because, you know, like I said, it's in our DNA. And the fact that we had the ambition and the goals to expand and continue to acquire Subway, other Subway stores, it was a great fit. And kudos to the Subway team really helping us with the transition too. So, you know, it's been great. And yes, we're multi-states. It's doesn't come without any difficulties with that, but I think we position ourselves location wise where we can make that happen. And you know, finding good leadership such as district managers to really help and operate our stores, because we can't do this by ourselves. We definitely need a team and good people to kind of help operate these units.
Yeah, no, definitely. And being able to go from having these, you know, enterprise and being, you know, building your legacy, and like you said, the true, you know, multi-generational wealth that you guys are now committed at creating, I think it's a great game to play. And I'm sure it's fun, even though it has challenges, and all that. And so the fact that so many franchise organizations, you know, brands, I meant franchisors, are so focused on going the multi-unit, one of my recommendations, I'm sure you probably back me on this, is that if you truly want to go from if you have a 1-unit job, I call it one franchise unit owner a job, right? To go into truly an enterprise, you need to go multi-unit. And that multi-unit is what's going to give you first the freedom, financial freedom, but then eventually your true, you know, generational wealth. And so make sure that you get educated. I want to be a little pitch in there for our Commander program, a franchise program that helps teach you what it takes to be a successful multi-unit franchisee. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Reach out to me or the Academy if you want to learn more about it. For sure. But yeah, it's definitely something that we our commitment every day. So tell me, you know, from that process, so you're starting in your journey right now, going to a you know, expanding your enterprise into now 17 units, right? You're going from 7 to 17 in less than a year. And you will learn a lot of lessons. You're still learning, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, in
Most
this early process, in this early process of learning, and mostly acquisitions, have you opened any at all, or is it all acquisitions?
All acquisitions right now.
All acquisitions right now. Okay.
Yeah, it's just for our brand specifically, there's a lot of opportunity to help transition, work with owners that want to transition. And the great thing about it too is that the owners do recognize our value because, yeah, they can get a certain price, but at the end of the day, they still care about their employees. And if you can have a great conversation, for those that are negotiating, it's not build that rapport with the owners, see what they truly want. If it's just they just want out, it is what it is. But if there's sometimes it's more than that. They want to make sure that their employees are well taken care of. And if you can convey that sometimes you may make a lower offer than somebody else, but because your rapport and your commitment to continuing their legacy in a way actually outweighs more than the final bottom price that they're going to get. So I just want to put that out to your viewers too. It's not all about the numbers sometimes. It's that emotional aspect that you have to address with the owners when you're doing acquisitions.
Yeah, and let me tell you a little bit about that. I'm sure that when you sit down with them and you show them the career path you created for your organization, and you share the recognition programs you create for your organizations, and how the pricing the salary strategy you have created to help elevate the people and give people the opportunity. Do you share that type of things with them so that they see that you taking over their business is going to really actually elevate their people?
We touch on it a little bit, because they do ask us, what do you do, whatnot. But in the transition, once the deal's about to happen, we do kind of meet with the entire crew and the previous sellers, and we talk about our vision, goals, and a lot of that does come into effect when we talk about their salaries and things of that nature, benefits that do come with the multi-unit operator versus a single unit. So the excitement does happen, and it's great. So we do, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Oh, love it. So going back to the initial, now that you're going through it, and I would call it, it's been a year. So the initial learnings, like what have you, I guess one of the learnings would be that it's not always all about the money. I mean, obviously you got to pay a fair price, but you might be able to make it a little bit favorable if you actually get to know the people and have them know what you're planning to do. Is there any other tips that you want to share with people that are that could eventually venture into these acquisitions that they could learn from and keep an eye for, or make sure that they pay attention to as they're going through acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said initially in the beginning, it's really you want to surround yourself. Well, first one, get educated, right, on the process and whatever brand it is. You definitely want to talk to as many. If it's a new emerging brand, it's really hard, to talk to current franchisees. But if it's a well-established brand like Subway, it's great to talk to many owners to see what their gripes are, what the positive pros and cons are. Just learn about that. And then of course there's like consultants like your firm that helps franchisees get educated on the operational side of the business is definitely a number two step that you have to take. And then number three is definitely your team. Like I said, I can't stress enough how important it is to have a good team of accountants, legal, bookkeeping, admin, payroll. It's all critical and very important to running the daily operations of your team. And I guess fourth is really, have a goal, set what is it you truly want. Some folks, we sometimes we lose sight of what we're truly doing, and you're like, why am I doing this? and no, it's for the long term. It's a long-term play. I think in business, we live in this instant gratitude kind of moment in this world, and a lot of the younger generations may sometimes miss the mark at times with that. It's a long-term play. So build wealth very slowly. And it's going to come, I think, and I've seen it firsthand with my family. So we know it works. We just got to do the work and be prepared to do the work and have that mindset that no matter what, you're going to overcome any obstacles, because you are going to have obstacles, from equipment failures to lease issues to employee issues, people, customers, but then the great reward is when you see employees cry when they get their bonus check, and it's something that they've never seen like that before. It's the individual, when you create a scholarship program for your people and they're overcome with joy, and the high school kid is like, wow, I didn't know how I was going to pay for my books, kind of thing. Is those moments that make it so worth it. that sometimes is, it kind of rewards you, fulfills you. And then not only that, the financial aspect took two of that. It's a good plus and motivator as well. So
Mm. Yes, absolutely. The financial is there too. I think it's the whole package, right? Is the personal and is the financial and everything else that is really great. And the impact that you get to make in all those family. I mean, there's so much to be said about the wonderful thing about franchising and really business ownership. But
yeah,
franchising just makes it a little bit easier, I think, than if you go on your own. So
yeah.
to close this conversation, which has been great, Soumangue, thank you for your time. Uh, and I'm just thinking about, the kids right now, the teenagers that are, working in their parents' businesses because their parents make them do it, and they may or may not like it. And
Mhm.
they maybe have not even thought about the possibility of, eventually taking over the business, which it would be something that is a possibility for them. What would you tell those teenagers as to whether what they should do, if like maybe anything that they need to do to prepare themselves, because if their
Mhm.
families have built these, like, how could they take advantage of this for the future? I mean, what would you tell those teenagers? What would you tell
Yeah,
yourself
no,
when you were a
it's
kid? Yeah.
yeah, I would tell, if I had talked to kids that are part of the family business, and I have actually, because when I was in banking, I worked with a lot of second generation members as well, and just kind of say, how did what made you decide to join the family business? Ask this question. I would say don't look at it at what it's currently operating the way it is. You may have a positive or negative experience. Growing up, you may not have seen your mom and dad, and you're like, you know what, I don't want that kind of lifestyle where I go into it, and it was sometimes for me, even that's why I was like, it turned me off a little bit because I wanted to do my own path. But then you also have to look at the possibility, right? You also say, okay, well, maybe they're operating in a different way. Like, is there a way that you can still have a somewhat balanced lifestyle and operate a successful business that provides you with all the financial well-being you need in order to live? Yeah, you look at it that aspect. So you kind of look at it like a glass, half full kind of opportunity rather than half empty. And maybe you can, do something with this business and take it to the next level. Now, it's not for everyone. Like honestly, and I'm sure you're correct. Like if you don't have the skills or the education and or the will, I would say will is probably 100 times more important than the attitude. As long as you have that, you can truly overcome that. But you got to get the education, you got to learn the skills, you got to put the time into work. If you decide you want to embark on an entrepreneur career, if you're not willing to do any of that kind of work, then yeah, I think there's lots of other careers out there that's probably best suited for you. But have a vision, have a goal, see the possibilities of what could happen. If you're a second generation family member, and take action on it every day.
I love that. Yeah, because it's definitely not for everybody. It is not for everybody. There's some of the kids that you better off going to another career, because if you're not willing to embrace everything that comes with being a franchise owner, then you are risking losing that legacy. So for sure. Well, thank you very much. So in closing, what are you looking for? Like, what's your future? Like, yeah, I know you're building an empire. Is it just in Subway? I know you mentioned about in
Yeah.
divesting your investment into other things, but as far
Right.
as Subway is concerned, how far do you want to take it? And be aware that Subway people are going to be watching this probably.
Oh, that's fine. That's
So
fine. And I welcome.
what's your vision for the brand and that part of your business?
Well, for any Subway owners that are in Hawaii or Louisiana, please reach out to me. We're looking to expand no matter what, if it makes sense, of course. But we would love to have the conversation. But secondarily, we like to get to a certain number. We have a goal in mind, financially, more so rather than unit count. We're looking more at uh, opportunities where we can turn stores around, or very well stores, like the great store, they're operating at a really high level, and it'll just be a great addition to our portfolio to add to the overall operations. So we're still actively growing Subway. I think we'll probably continue to do that for the next 2 years. And then from there, we may make a decision. Okay, what other vehicles can we start to invest some of this cash flow that we're earning? What other better rates of returns could we get? And real estate might be an opportunity. Owner operating real estate where we can buy a building and operate a subway on it. Do we strategically go after those types of investments? Also, possibly looking at another brand for sure. We don't know if that's what we truly want to do. So, honestly, I think we're at a point right now. We're in growth mode. Our blinders on all. We're laser focused. We're focusing on one brand. We're not trying to be involved. We are looking at other brands, but it's just like, all right, that's pretty cool. We'll put that on the side, but it's a nice thing. Nice, it's a shiny object. We know that.
And we don't want shiny objects. We want it eye on the prize.
We talk about that all the time. Shiny objects are very distracting, and they're beautiful. They're sexy. We want to. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, but we'll keep that there. We're late. Like I said, we're 100% laser focused and growing the band. And I think what the current executive team is fantastic. They're a new team, lots of growth. For those watching, you've seen a lot of Subway commercials, so they have a really strong strategic plan for the 6, 7, 10 years, and we just want to ride that wave, right? We want to be a part of that, be a part of the solution, and then when it comes to a point where a bigger fish wants to buy us out or whatnot, they are more than welcome to buy it at the right multiple that makes sense for all of us. But if not, it's okay. We've seen the aspects of holding on to it for 30 years and also transitioning it to the next generation. So we have 2 great exit plans, I think, in play right now that could work for our family, and possibly other opportunities to invest in other vehicles.
Wonderful. So in closure, if you are anywhere in the Hawaii market or in the Louisiana market, and you are willing or looking to exit your business, and your children are not the ones that are going to do it, please reach out to Soumangue. You can actually reach out to us at the AmericanFranchiseAcademy.com. Send us a little message in there, and we will be happy to connect you. It's a great leader. Him and his sisters are doing it the right way. They're learning all the processes. They have amazing processes and procedures for their team management. There are, the revenue they're managing, the profitability, which is allowing them to grow. And of course, the scale systems that now they've gone from 7 to 17 units in less than a year. And obviously getting educated is very important. So thank you very much. Soumangue, as always, you are amazing. I'm so glad that you chose us to be able to guide you in the management process of being a multi-unit franchisee. And I look forward to seeing you in the next mastermind.
That's right. Thank you, Aisha. I appreciate it very
much. Same here. Thank you, everybody, for being with us in today's show. I hope that you got a lot out of it. I'm sure I did, and excited to hear all that from one of our great clients. And remember that, 1 unit is a job, going multi-unit is a franchise enterprise. And that's really what the freedom is, which is where we help you get there. And if you have a family and hoping that one of your kids take over your business, listen to this podcast or this show, and make sure that you listen to what all the learnings that Soumangue and his sisters had, so that you can do it the right way. So you can not only protect your financial legacy, but also your family legacy and the love and care you have for each other. Thank you for being with me today, and we'll see you in the next show, where we can teach you more best practices, tips, and knowledge on how to be successful. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.